Well, thank you to the organizations for inviting me to give this presentation. My presentation is completely different to the previous one because it's more clinical perspective, not a pharmaceutical scientist. It's from the perspective of a hospital pharmacist and how to manage the introduction of this new technology in the clinical practice. Well, I have no conflict of interest with neither of the materials presented, this presentation. And as we are in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's not possible to not mention the COVID-19 and how will this pandemic shape the future of healthcare and how we shape how the decisions in the evolution of healthcare will be addressed in the near months, because we all know and we all expect that that will be a life after the COVID-19. But which lessons can be learned and have an impact on the introduction of 3D medicines? The first lesson is the case of hydroxychloroquine. You know that hydroxychloroquine was based this use based on in vitro models and also with not very robust clinical trials. After several months of being widely used worldwide, it has shown that it has not benefit at all. And we have learned that evidence-based medicine matters, and when we have to handle the introduction of a new therapy, a new drug, or a new technology, we have to base our decisions in evidence. In the first wave, we also handled the shortages of ICU essential drugs. Shortages of drugs are a common situation in hospitals and in community pharmacies, but with essential drugs it was a very difficult situation to treat patients, treat critical patients. And we have learned that new mechanisms to make a supply chain more resilient, to start and to prove new strategies to keep our healthcare systems resilient in front of new pandemics, but also to provide the care to our patients. And also it also affects to the drugs, and also it affects to many of the drugs, the production and the manufacturing of these drugs. In the first wave, there was stock out of hydrocolloid solutions, and we had to compound these solutions in hospital pharmacies, in community pharmacies. Compounding was considered not very fashion because most of our drugs come from the manufacturing industry, and we noticed that compounding is still an important tool to practice, and it is a very good resource, especially in terms of in these situations of crisis. We already piloted several telemedicine experiences and the home delivery of drugs, but now it's not anymore a pilots. They're widely used, and it will be one of the things that it will remain and will expand after the pandemic. So digital health is closer health, is closer to patients' home, and we are facing how to handle this in the future and how to get the medicines closer to all patients. Not only to avoid the risk of infection that was during the pandemic, but also to make more comfortable the patients' diseases and not going to the hospital too often. We face it that we still don't know a lot of things about COVID-19, and we don't know because why some patients respond to some treatments or not. So we we had something in the table, was the 4P precision medicine, the predictability, personalized, preventable, and participatory medicine. But now is one of the things that we have in the table to start and to expand and to work on after this pandemic. The rapid vaccine development shown us that not everything in healthcare is slow. Sometimes to introduce a new technology in healthcare has to prove, we need this evidence, but we don't need 10 years for everything. Accelerated progress is possible if it is a real need and if we have enough evidence to manage the risk of this introduction. The first wave, and now we are in the third wave, we have unprecedented demand of healthcare services. We have hospitals, not only full hospitals, we have field hospitals in most of the countries, and we have managed these field hospitals and to reorganize all the flows of patient treatment.
So I ran the channel.
Multicellular teams have been shown that are the cornerstone of the efficient work and quality work, and to speed up these structures of field hospitals and the flows of medication flows. And finally, COVID-19 has been a source of innovation. We are receiving a lot of new medical device innovations that they were invented or readapted during the COVID-19 pandemic. And well, we know that innovation can transform the healthcare system, can make it more efficient, and probably we'll need to have it more efficient if there is this credit crisis after the pandemic. But what we consider to introduce a new innovation in a hospital, in the pharmacy? Sorry. Well, we have to confirm this is an effective solution. Not all the innovations are really effective. We have this proof. We need this evidence. We have to consider the sustainability of the healthcare systems and the value for money for these innovations, the cost effectiveness of these new products or new technologies. And sorry, if it's worthwhile, the effort or introducing some of these innovations into practice. Sometimes it can be effective. It can be according to the sustainability of the healthcare, but if there is a much effort to introduce this technology in the hospital, sometimes it's not worthwhile in terms of labor or in terms of investment. It's also difficult to say what is and what is not a real innovation. There are several definitions. I like this one, of the from the International Society of Drug Bulletins, that makes 3 categories of innovations: the commercial concept that refers to newly marketed middle products, new substances, and treatment methods. These are commercial innovations. The technology concept means that these industrial innovations, biotechnology, new delivery systems, or selection of an isomer or metabolite, and the therapeutic advances, which means new treatments that benefits patients compared with existing ones. If there are existing ones, sometimes there are not existing treatment options. And where is 3D printing medicines categorized or which applied? Well, hopefully the most important is the therapeutic advances, the disruptive advances of healthcare innovations, but it also applies to these commercial and technology concepts. And finally, how the decision to introduce this technology or these drugs, how it's based with these three terms: the efficacy, to show that is efficacy in proven trials, its safety, and the efficiency. Sorry. And why is this 3D printed medication? 3D printed medication can allow us to meet some uncertain medical needs. About pediatrics, we have to compound a lot of drugs for pediatrics. In the hospital, we have geriatric patients that they have a lot of polypharmacy, they have difficulties to swallow medication. We have problems of safety with handling the narrow therapeutic index drugs, which are these ones that the range of therapeutic levels is so small that it can be the safety is in a few therapeutic levels. Complex regimes of several drugs or several dosages are difficult to handle for many patients. And also, we are facing that orphan diseases. We are now every day more aware of orphan diseases and the unmet needs of these patients. What do we expect about 3D printing medicines? We expect another tool to improve medication adherence. We know that in chronic patients, about 50% of patients are not adherent. To improve the treatment efficacy, which is related to the adherence, and also to get more comfortable, more easy formulations for our patients. If we can handle the narrow therapeutic index drugs, reduce side effects, and on orphan diseases, new tools for formulate drugs can allow us to introduce or new active ingredients or repurpose active ingredients for other diseases with this new technology. Well, there are two types of, we see two types of 3D printed medicines, the commercial ones and the on-site ones. From our perspective, as hospital pharmacists, a registered 3D printed drug is not very different from another drug. It can be innovative or not. It depends on the HTA, health technology assessment of this drug. It has to prove the added clinical benefit and also to prove the value for money for this drug. And what about the 3D drug printers and the intermediate products, like filaments? Well, a 3D printer is not a drug, so the assessment to take the decision for the introduction to the hospital, it's similar to a medical device. And if this printer has only a short list of printable drugs, and then that would consider to assess or to the decision, or to base the decision in this short list of drugs. And which are the main challenges we face with the implementation? hope some of them will be solved in these presentations and the following presentations. What are the technical challenges? Printer techniques are slower, and we have uncertainties about the traditional, the safe compared with the traditional compounding methods, which already know. The versatility, now with a capsules compounding device, we can compound several formulations, several drugs, but if we expect that 3D printers maybe are not going to be so versatile. In hospitals, we face cyber risk more often than you expect. We have hacker attacks to hospital institutions, and if a 3D printer software is a black box, and we have this challenge of how to manage these software hackers and changes of the receipt. Professional challenges about our pharmacy technicians that needs upgrading, and also hospital pharmacies, and how to integrate maybe other professionals, biomedical engineers in our teams to manage these 3D printers. One of the major concerns is the legal and regulatory challenges. We have compounding is national-based regulatory, so there's a need of this regulatory framework for 3D printers and as well for these 3D printed drugs. We have the problem of quality controls. In big batches, like the pharmaceutical industry, you can test some of the units, but with small batches, you do not test these units. You do these in-process controls, which guarantees you the final product is according to the specifications. So we have some uncertainties about these in-process controls and the safety and the reliability of these controls if they are applicable to our practice. And the regulation of these intermediate products for on-site printing, like filaments or pre-formulated drugs, where we do not expect to formulate these intermediate products in the hospital pharmacy. We expect to receive or to buy it from the pharmaceutical industry. So that would apply another regulation and how these intermediate products are used and regulated until the final product. And always the economic challenges. How much is the invest in the new equipment and how to handle it, and if this affects and with the current equipment, and if you have to replace it. So the idea of 3D printer for a hospital pharmacy, we consider all these issues, all these topics. The safety, according to the good manufacturing practices and quality controls. Versatility, to value for money the investment of the 3D printer. It has to be efficient. We don't have a lot of biomedical engineers in hospitals. Some hospitals in several places even do not have any engineer, so it has to be user-friendly as much as possible. The stability of the new formulations have to be proven and to be tested. So we need evidence and data about these new formulations. And the cost is not only related to the machine or only to the intermediate products. It's also related to the time or our staff that will be using this machine, and compared with the current practices or the current traditional compounding. If the question is, are hospital pharmacies willing to use 3D printers? Well, we are ready and we want to use it. The first experiences are focused in research of pilots, or have been published some one clinical trial with a 3D printer prepared in the hospital pharmacy. But also, as you are in a hospital, you are in the middle of an academic and research environment, and you see that your colleagues, the orthopedic surgeons, are using the 3D printers. So there are some ideas to start using 3D printers and getting used and familiarized with the technology. So there are some experiences to prepare pill cutters, personalized pill boxes, or measuring cylinder. They are not really drugs. They could be considered medical devices or proofs or tests to just start getting used to this technology. But it's a real proof that hospital pharmacies are waiting for this technology and to collaborate with in the industry or startups. And finally, what means moving to a digital pharmacy with 3D printing? It means that new compounding competences for this new technology, the hospital pharmacy. It means to address the regulatory challenges, a reasonable cost will be introduced, an internal problem of getting used to these multidisciplinary pharmacy teams. But finally, I think 3D printers can allow us to go from a patient-centered care to a patient-centered design of our drugs. Thank you.